here is the sad truth, and I don't like it any more than you do, other retailers, but Marvel and DC would be grateful if they could abandon the comic market entirely and not lose any business.
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting, comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers. And now, here are Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
Nothing against Kent Challenger, but the consensus from last week's episode is people miss Dal.
Aw, that's weird.
There you are. There you are, buddy.
That's a weird thing for people to miss.
I don't know what episode this is of Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast on the Yak Channel Podcast Network in Chicago. And your hosts of this episode, and most episodes, but not all, are myself, Patrick Brower.
And myself, W. Dal Bush.
Wait, I was myself. How are you, myself? All by myself. Welcome to the Myselves podcast. Hey, buddy, how's your week going?
Good, how about you?
All right, I'm very tired.
Yeah.
I had a weird 2 days in a row where Friday, it's the first Friday of the month, so that's usually Paperwork Friday.
Sure.
And there are a lot of things involved in our paperwork. And because of the way the day was structured yesterday, and because of the way people were coming in, and maybe because of the way Gina was trying desperately to get my brother and me tickets for Milwaukee, and she was having a huge problem that she was literally on that computer for 2 hours.
Oof.
That ate into some time.
I imagine it would.
To be fair, if I had said, get off that computer, she would have, but
Sure.
I didn't want to while she was... Basically, she had really good seats in her cart, but it wouldn't let her change her zip code.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was so weird. I don't even know how that ended up. So I got to do only the first step of the monthly paperwork.
Okay.
And normally when that happens, it happens on occasional Fridays. Fridays just get out of control and busy.
Sure.
I usually say, I can just do that stuff on Saturday. Well, I couldn't today, because today we wound up having an all-day event
Yeah.
at the store. It was what we were calling Battlepug Saturday, or whatever we were calling it. It was a special release event for Mike Norton's Battlepug, where Mike Norton, of Battlepug fame,
Yep.
was coming to the store to sign, and we were inviting people to bring their dogs. Secretly, so Mike could kidnap them all. But on the surface, bring your dog to Challengers Day.
Sure.
And we were going to also keep the dog thing going by grilling hot dogs. And I think, now people listening can't really get this experience, but you can. Can you smell it on me still?
I can't.
All I do is smell it, and I think it's just trapped in my beard.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I was foolishly the grill master when we realized way too late it should have been Lizzie, because Lizzie knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And I do not. But that's our bad, because we did not ask her. And future reference, Lizzie can do all of our grilling.
Okay.
But we had hot dogs and potato chips and waters, and we were going to sell them, and sell as in quotes, for a suggested donation of $1 per item.
Sure.
And all that money was going to go to the Alzheimer's Association, because it is still the Alzheimer's 5K that I'm doing for my mom is a week away. And this was just another last-ditch effort to get some money for it. And let me do the math on this. And I... Okay, we got that.
Yeah, that's definitely...
All right, so the total was... Wait, is this... Wait.
No, that you subtract that one.
Oh, sorry.
You don't add that one. Jesus.
All right, so we made $0 for charity today.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hopefully $0 will help cure Alzheimer's.
$0.
$0.
Good. That's a good one. And Mike Norton is one of our favoritist people.
Yes.
He's a prolific creator. He's a diverse creator.
He's got a lot of projects.
Yeah.
He's a very busy guy.
He's got a bunch of different styles. He's adaptable. He's reliable. But I think one of the problems is, A, he's local, and B, he came to Challengers.
Yeah, I definitely think it's more B than A. It's funny because we're 11 plus years into Challengers, and occasionally going through files and stuff on the computer, I'll see stuff and I'll be reminded of, oh my god, certain events that we did in the first couple years. And, like, how crazy the turnout was and how things that, were goofy things that we just threw together would get, dozens of people to show up. And it's like, god damn. And now we can have Mike Norton out and nobody cares. And we can't seem to get anyone to care about basically anything we do anymore. Which, I'm sure this is a broken record for people who listen to enough episodes. But because it's a broken record to people who listen to enough episodes, it's definitely something where, and I know I've said this before, but this time I feel like I really mean it, we're going to take a real hard look at doing events going forward. They just don't seem like they're worthwhile. And the worst part is it wastes time for people like Mike Norton. Like, that's a guy who didn't need to come in. Like, we asked him to do something, and he came in on his time off and stayed extra long, and I can't imagine it was worth his time.
I mean, he would have been home drawing, probably.
Yeah. That was 4+ hours he did not need to spend at Challengers. For people who largely didn't show up to meet him.
Yeah, we don't want to make it seem like nobody came in, because we had people come in. God love you, Springham family. You come to every event we do for the most part, and that's amazing.
Yeah, the people who came are awesome, and God bless them.
And people did come, and we had 3 dogs, at least 3 dogs come in.
Sure, yes. And Mike was happy to meet each of them. But it's just a matter of, how much effort we put into it, and how much effort the artists and guests that we have put into it, just for being in the store when they don't have to. Versus what the return on that is. And it's a shame because we've dealt with this with other events that we've had to kind of sunset, where there are a few people who take advantage of it, and it always sucks to say to those people, thank you for your effort, and thank you for doing this, and thank you for appreciating it and making it worth our time to do it for you. There's just not enough of you for us to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And having to say, it's easier if it's 0. If no one shows up, you're just like, well, great, I'm never doing this again, and no one will care. But when, 4 people show up to something where you need 12 people to show up, it's hard to tell those 4 people, there needs to be 3 times as many of you. And there aren't, and I'm sorry, but that's not enough.
And our costs weren't huge for this. Mike is local. Elliot Rahal, who was in today, was coming in to do this. We paid for the Battlepugs. We bought the hot dogs and the buns and the potato chips and things. Which wasn't a huge expense, but it was an expense.
Yeah, it wasn't $0.
And you worked a full day today when today is normally your day off.
It is. This would have been my day off.
Yeah.
I was at the store.
And you were in for the
6+ hours.
Yeah, over 6 hours.
Over 6 hours.
We got in a little bit early. We stayed a little bit late.
I won't be there for 6 hours on Sunday, which is a day I normally work.
Yeah. Yep. So thanks for coming in today, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely was a point in the midsection where I'm like, oh, I don't need to be here. But I didn't know that ahead of time.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Not because, we had creators we had to deal with, but, because it was when I was outside grilling for a while, and there were other things that needed attention because we had creators in the store. So that means I did not get any of I got 0 store work done today. The only thing I did was I was able to print up a menu for today, which wound up being
that was a waste of your time.
Yeah.
Nobody cared.
Yeah, I wasted paper and ink on it.
Yeah.
To be fair, Addison Duke was willing to pay for his hot dog, but at that point I'm like, you know what? I don't care.
Who cares? It's $1.
Just take it.
Just eat your $1.
Yeah, so we would have gotten $1.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, again, it's a common refrain. This was not worth doing for the amount of people that turned out. And yeah, I don't want to be insulting to the people who did turn out. And I think it's, my tendency is to, be hyperbolic with it and be very nobody showed up. Well, that's kind of insulting to the 6 people who did show up. But yeah, end of the day, we did a cookout. We had 2 creators in for 2 #1 issues that just came out this week. And we had, not counting friends of theirs and family members of theirs, less than 10 people showed up.
Yeah. And we bent over backwards trying to get some representation from an animal shelter or an adoption agency or something to do with dogs in the city. And it didn't work out at all, and it was discouraging, and I'm so glad it didn't work out.
Yeah, at least
because it would have been a huge waste of their time. But what I feel most badly about is
my time. Thank you, Patrick.
Is Dal's time.
I would have been at home.
Right.
Anyway, go on.
There was no Toku Saturday post only because of this.
Those have migrated.
100%. Only because of this.
There won't be Toku Saturday post because I'm doing all my posting on the Toku Nation boards now. That's where it lives, out of Patrick's eyesight. He never has to know about it. And I can go into a lot more detail and post more often.
More detail?
Oh yeah. I mean, Instagram, it's hard to do lengthy text posts because it's a photograph site.
Sure.
But on a message board, you can have a lot of things where you're talking about how Kamen Rider Ghost is
You don't
going.
even need screen caps.
Or rewatching the Kamen Rider XA movies. Oh, there are screen caps. Oh my god.
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
Patrick.
okay. So
there's more screen caps.
The thing I felt most badly about for the signing was when Mike Norton said to us, "I'm sorry, I don't bring anybody in."
Yeah, and that's why we don't want to waste people's time, is not just because they could be doing work, but we don't want to make them feel like it's on them to bring in people.
It's not, Mike Norton. It is not on you.
It's not. And it's far past the point of me being like, maybe we're not getting the right people. Like, no, it's us as a store. Like, the people that we have generally shopping at the store, following us on social media, don't care about what we're doing. Like, they care to the extent that, like, they might, I don't know, like something or
so
whatever, but they're not going to do anything.
I used to think it was valuable to have cross-promotion with publishers, and I know that Aftershock had done social media posts about Elliot Rahall's Midnight Vista tour, and I thought, like, well, what if we got Image to shout it out or something? But we've had that before.
Yeah, no.
We've had those companies shout things out before to no avail, and I just thought, it's just noise.
Yeah.
I don't...
Someone in North Dakota is going to see it and, reblog it or whatever, and it's like, who cares at that point? Like,
so
you're not in Chicago. You can't come to the event.
I did what wound up being a podcast-length interview with Elliot Rahal.
Oh, okay.
Which will be edited and put up as a bonus episode at some point. Mm-hmm. But one of the things was, like, as he was talking, people would come to the table, so he would pitch them.
Sure.
And I recorded all of that. But one guy, after he gets the full pitch from both Elliot and myself,
mm-hmm.
he takes a picture
uh-huh.
of the book,
uh-huh.
and then he's on his phone, then he holds it up and goes, "There you go, I gave you guys some Instagram love."
What? That's not dollars?
Yeah. Yep.
My landlord's not going to accept that.
Yeah, and I so badly wanted to say something about it.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
I'm helping. You're really not.
Yeah.
You're really not.
But people think it does help.
It doesn't. No one cares.
What doesn't help is...
I'm sorry, are you a Kardashian? Then it doesn't help.
Yeah. Well, the signing, which there were flyers in the store, fine. In the email, it was in the subscriber email this week, was it? I don't know. It was definitely in the regular email.
Yeah, it was in the everybody email, not necessarily the
for months, for weeks at least, or months.
Flyers on the front counter.
Yeah.
You did a post today when you were actually grilling, so people who were like could last minute it.
Right. Mike Norton posted about it, things like that, and it was advertised the whole time from 12 to 3. One of our own employees came in at what time?
I want to say it was like 4:30 at least.
4:30, 4:45.
Yeah, late in the day.
Specifically to see Mike Norton, whose signing was advertised until 3.
Yeah, who actually stayed until 4.
Yeah.
And this person was still too late to see them.
And that is someone who works for challengers and who should know,
who in theory
better,
might have questions from people who are coming in about an event. And God only knows when he was telling them. I mean, he or she, wink, wink, they, genderless pronoun, they. Yeah, it's...
but if you're wondering who it was, just listen to last week's podcast.
What? So, yeah, it's dispiriting because there's things that we get excited about and we want to do more with and we want to try and promote. But basically, it's just a cost-benefit analysis. Like, all of the time and energy we're going to put into doing this thing that no one's going to care about, we could put into basic store maintenance. We could put into things that will actively, visibly affect our bottom line. So why do these events? Not even counting the like my time having to come in on a day off, but your time, Patrick. How much work did you not get done today?
All of the work.
All of it. All of the work. Like, there's things you could have done today that now you'll have to do at a later time, and you'll have to do on top of other things, and that stuff doesn't get all the attention it should, and on and on and on. So yeah, I mean, us doing events is kind of like a store identity thing, but Jesus Christ, it's just beating our heads against the wall at a certain point. Like, just stop doing them. Just say no. Like, don't ask artist friends of ours to come in. And if they say, like, hey, do you want me to come in? Just say, it's not worth your time. No one's, like, we can't get people to show up. Go sign at a different store, There's a few people where, like, lately we've seen people, not at other comic shops, but just doing other events in the city. And once upon a time, be like, man, why can't we get, like, a publisher to work with us to get them into the comic shop as well as whatever? And it's like, Jesus Christ, I would absolutely not waste their time anymore. Like, it would not be worth them spending an additional 3 hours on a quick city stop to be at our store too. Don't bother.
Okay, well, changing gears a little bit. Saturday, September 21st is Batman Day at Challengers.
Guys.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. Clear your calendar. Get your capes on. Batman Day is coming back to Challengers.
Saturday, September 21st.
Yep.
11 to 5.
Yep.
6 hours of Bat madness.
Yeah, we got a few comics we're giving out that DC put together this year. They include a reprint edition of the Batman Who Laughs one-shot with a brand new Batman Who Laughs face mask cover that you can punch out and wear on your face as the most popular Batmans of all time. There's also I believe, a young adult-oriented Batman comic that we're going to be giving away.
It's a reprint of the Batman Strikes #1.
What? It's the first chapter in a young adult-oriented Bruce Wayne graphic novel. On top of that, we're doing 20% off all Batman merchandise in the store. That's comic books, graphic novels, t-shirts, action figures, any Batman thing. It's just 20% off for September 21st. We'll have 2 artists in through the day.
Luke Smarto and Stephanie Maida doing free Batman sketches.
Yeah, and they're only doing Batman-themed sketches. So if you want a certain kind of Batman or a Batman theme, great. But if you're like Spider-Man, that's not Spider-Man Day, it's Batman Day.
And it can't be Spider-Man fighting Batman because you're not getting 2 figures.
Right. You're going to get a Batman drawing. Yeah, that's our plan for the day. I'm sure we'll have some Batman stuff playing on the monitor, and Patrick is going to adopt some wards, so that'll be fun.
Well,
I don't know what else we got planned.
First, I need to see which acrobats die in the city that
many.
morning.
It's ridiculous. It's
and,
like an
and
epidemic.
then, and then pick and choose.
Yeah, obviously you're going to want the ones that are going to do the best as a compliment to your crime-fighting style.
Well, I need to know
your
which ones can steal tires, like off the Batmobile, because that's a plus.
Well, that's the thing. You don't want all of them to be tire stealers. You want, like, one kind of acrobat. You want one tire stealer. You want one
Master Detective,
and one girl. But only for a little while. The girl's only there for a little while.
I thought I wanted a surly preteen as well.
Because, well, no, then you'll have your biological child who will show up late in the game.
I'm worried about that.
That's the twist. Is not only did you diminish the storytelling prospects of the girl's sidekick, but then you find out you got a son, and he's been artificially aged.
Not a daughter.
Artificially aged.
Obviously, we're still doing events, but I think we're going to make the E's lowercase whenever possible. We're not going to add components outside of Batman Day, which is usually a fun day and a good time. And not one of the things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But we do have, Michael Marici signing coming up. We've got our last ever Voracious signing coming up.
Hilariously, I'm working with a publisher on an event that we'd be doing in October with a touring artist that includes, like, a kind of...
A capital E component.
Yeah, it's got, like, more of a performance element to some of it. So we'll see how that goes. But and that's the joke, is that we literally just did an event with a local artist that included, like, the monitor or the projector and the screen and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And there was a huge turnout for it.
Yeah.
So that stuff, I don't know, it's weird. Maybe we're looking at this one event as too representative of something that is more of a moving target. That who knows how or why events are attended or not attended, but it feels like because we can't nail it down, and the swing is anywhere between, like, 6 people and 40, like, it's too difficult to plan towards, and that makes it something where it's better to maybe not plan towards
when we have a local creator sitting behind a table for 2 hours to sign a new book, our expectations for that are lower than when we have a creator in signing a book, also a cookout, also specifically bring your dog to challengers. Like when we have
Also a second creator as well.
yeah, when we have multiple components added to it, that's when we expect a higher turnout.
Yeah, and if anything, it turns out to be a lower turnout.
Yeah,
so,
and because we figure, you could like this one thing, or this thing, or this thing, or two of those things, or all three of those things.
Right.
Like that's a larger Venn diagram of people being reached.
You would think. Instead, it's the same group, and you're just selecting out different things.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's better to just, going forward, do the, like, here's a folding table, it's in the window, you've got 2 hours, go to work.
And I'll be honest, this whole summer, I have offered Saturday signings for a whole bunch of local talent for people that either haven't had an event at Challengers in a while or have something to push or with Kickstarters. And I could name the people that I've asked, and they all seemed excited. And all I said was, let me know when you want to do it. Our Saturdays tend to fill up with other events.
Yeah.
Not a single one of them has taken me up on it.
That's disappointing.
And the summer's over.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this often. Not often, but occasionally. What's the word? Vacillate?
Vacillate. Vacillate's a word.
Between offering up every Saturday to a local creator to come in and set up a table for up to 5 hours.
Yeah.
During the day. And then I think about, well, sometimes I don't want people there every single Saturday.
Right.
Sometimes it's, I don't know. Like Elliot Rahal today had a fun way of engaging people who walk by. He'd just say, oh, did you hear about that super famous book? Oh, by the way, I'm the one who wrote it.
It's cute.
You've heard about it, right? The one about the alien abduction?
That's cute.
Yeah. And, just a way to get people to stop and look.
Sure.
And on the one hand, I don't necessarily want every Saturday to have anybody who comes in to be, forgive the word, accosted by hand selling.
Sure.
But most local creators are not that vocal about it.
Right, but the additional component is, and this is maybe sounding selfish, but it means that, like, if it's a day that you or I are working and there's a creator there, we have to be very attentive to the creator.
Right.
We have to constantly be making sure they're having an okay time, that they don't need anything, that their table is fine. And that's all time that you and I could be spending working or working with customers.
Right.
But we're not. We're having to split our focus to incorporate this other thing. And that's fine on occasion, but every day becomes like, Jesus Christ, there's just not enough man hours to do all that stuff.
And I'm never worried about, well, if somebody buys from them, they're not going to buy from us. I'm not worried about that.
No.
If anything, it's an additive. Like, they'll buy something else from the creator and not be like, well, I was going to buy one book, but it's their book. You don't get the money.
Yeah.
That's not a concern.
I don't think it's zero sum like that.
No. But, and sure, part of me wants to make sure that it's worth their while as well. Like, I don't know what the expectations are. Or like, you're not going to make $1,000 from setting up a Challengers that day.
No.
But obviously I want it to be worth their while, but I want it to be fun as well. And sometimes, if they don't have a lot of traffic, that fun has to come from us.
Right.
And as you just said, that takes us away from the business of running a comic book store.
Yeah, that's computer work we can't do. That's customers we can't help. That's straightening that doesn't get done. That's a project that we mean to work on that has to wait a week.
I feel like the store got a hurricane through it this week. I mean, so many books stacked on top of shelves, so many things just misplaced, so many random just things out of order and misplaced, and I didn't get a chance to clean as much of that as I
worked on it a little bit.
I do. I saw you restock as well, which is always a good thing. And we finally got those club boxes down off the counter.
Yeah.
Next week is not one of the largest weeks we've had in a while, like the last 2 weeks have been.
Good.
So that'll be a little bit of a breather. But also, it is September now, and traditionally, sales go down a little bit in September.
It's true.
However, they used to grind to a halt.
Yeah, it stopped like it hit a wall.
Yeah, but this time it hasn't done that.
This week seems okay.
Yeah. Our Monday and Tuesday were lower than normal, but I mean, lower than they have been recently.
Tuesday, yes. Monday, no. Monday was fine.
Then why'd you close early?
Because was definitely going to be no one coming in between 5 and 7.
Oh, you don't know how many people tried. They all called me.
Why didn't you go in then?
Because I was busy at a thing. I also don't remember what happened on Monday.
Labor Day.
Yeah, right, but wasn't I doing something?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I feel like I always am.
I'm pretty sure I was bringing ice cream to you.
That's what I was doing. That was very important.
You were waiting for ice cream.
Yes. Oh, it was good ice cream, too. It's all gone now. All of it.
They'll sell you more of it at the Baskin-Robbins.
Yeah, but then I'm afraid of being abducted by aliens if I go get it.
Understood.
And to understand that story, you should get Midnight Vista #1 from Aftershock Comics. We have signed copies and everything.
We do, yeah.
Hey, so we didn't get a chance to do this last week because it was recorded off-site and I did not have access to the Challenger's whiteboard. But this is the point in the month where we thank our many patrons. And we have several patron levels of sponsorship at patreon.com/challengers, where you can pledge to us your undying loyalty and a lifetime of servitude, or you can just throw us some money if you like this podcast and think there's value in it. And there is a quarter per episode level where you're basically saying, yeah, I get a quarter worth of value out of this podcast, this hour-long podcast that you haven't missed a week on in years. There's that. There's the $2 level, which is basically 50 cents per episode. And then there is the $5 level, in which we thank you during an episode, and it sounds very much like this. Thank you, Matt Armstrong, Ryan Alcock, Mike Lee, Mitchell Davies, Thomas Nagovin, Jose Villagomez, the entire Bingham Springham family, and this is their second reference in today's episode, Michael Romanenko, Artie White, George Brower, Morgan Kaiju Perry, Robert Lane, Jacob Sorelli, Christina McChrystal, Brother Bear Mark Hammond, and our newest patrons, Marcus Nasso from Voracious, Robert Burns from Brutally Frank, and Bridget Neville, who is technically not a $5 patron. She has created her own level above that we don't have a separate rewards tier for. So she definitely gets a shout out in the shout out section. So thank you, Bridget, and thank you everyone who we've just mentioned. And thanks for listening. Wait, no, is that...
Thanks, everybody.
Is that... Oh, we're a little bit... No.
A little light.
Little light, a little premature. Thank you, patrons. Thank you very much. And whilst we were grilling today, we had, as you pointed out, posted a photo of the grilled hot dogs with the caption, "So what's your comic shop doing today?" And one of the first people to like it was Jacob Sorelli from Kamikaze in Tel Aviv, Israel.
Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah. I do like how the internet has made comic retailing seem more of a thing that is recognized globally, but you feel closer to a lot of the retailers from other countries. And with the Alzheimer's 5K that I'm raising money for, I've had a lot of retail brethren contribute to it. And these are retailers that I don't know personally outside of interactions online.
It's still nice.
Yeah, it was great to have that happen, and it does make you feel like you're in a group, you know?
Sure.
Like, obviously running a store is a personal, separate, day-to-day thing, but at least now more than ever, I feel like there's more people I acknowledge who do it.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there have been things that have come up during the week that I wanted to talk about that I didn't write any of it down. However, I did at one point during this week ask you a question, and I recorded it.
Oh.
And it happened on the sales floor at Challengers, so I'm going to drop that in right here. Okay, legitimate question. Mm-hmm. Since we're working on November orders now, do you think Saga returns this calendar year?
No.
Do you think Saga returns the exact same day Doomsday Clock finishes?
No. No, I don't think it's going to be in the December previews.
Do you think they're deliberately waiting to be like, hey, it's January? Or do you think that they just have no, like, they don't know yet? Their Image is waiting for BKV and Fiona Staples to say when?
Probably the latter. I think they internally kind of have an idea of when it's going to be, but I don't think they're ready to announce anything just yet. I think they want to get some extra work done, and they do feel like they've got a little bit of a cushion.
As a fan of Saga, and as a retailer, when this hiatus was announced, did you expect that it would be anywhere near this long? Because it was the last issue was January of 2018. I'm sorry, July.
Yeah,
those
July,
J months moved together. July.
I had hoped it would be around 12 months, and not much longer. But yeah, it's disappointing that it's been like 16 months.
How much? Heather, how much would you hate it if they say, "Hey, it's coming back," and the first 6 issues are weekly?
There's a possibility that they could do something really goofy, but I think they've been really good about understanding kind of what works best for their release schedules and stuff. I don't think they're the Kirkman type where it's like, it's in the boxes next week. Like, they want to take advantage of...
Oh, yeah, I never anticipated a surprise, but what if they did... what if they literally solicited the next arc, 6 weeks in a row of issues, the 7th week is the trade?
No, they've been really good about, like, keeping things reasonable for their retail partners. Like, even when they've done 25-cent issues, it's like, look, we're also going to do this like print thing that you could maybe sell to make up for the money that you're not making.
Sure.
And we're not doing it all the time. They could have done a whole bunch of variant covers, but people said, we don't want you to do that, and they're like, all right, we're not going to then.
Boy, I wish Todd McFarlane heard that.
I don't make a lot of extra money off the internet. It's an $8 book that people are buying 3 or 4 copies of.
Just saying we don't need 301 to have P covers as well.
I don't know what we're going to look at this. We'll have to figure it out Sunday.
16. Just in case you're wondering, P covers means 16 covers.
Well, I don't know if I remember what that is.
It was all about Saga.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember that? Nope. No, you don't.
No, I didn't realize you recorded that.
I know. I wanted to feel organic.
Oh, Jesus. Uh-oh.
Yeah. No. You did.
I mean, I'm sure it's not identical.
Yeah.
I don't censor myself at all.
No.
For this.
No. The questions were, why do you hate it? And
why
do
Goose
you want
on every
Goose to
panel
die?
of every page.
Why do you want him to die so badly?
Because he's too perfect for this world.
It was just stuff like, do you think it'll come back this year?
I remember now. I remember now.
Okay. I mean, I don't need to keep describing it. People have just heard it.
I hope so, yeah.
So there you go. So that was, like, I did that this week, and I've already recorded that full-length episode with Elliot Rahal. Dad, what have you done for the podcast this week?
Sweet F.A.
I thought you were going to say, sat here and answered these questions.
I've been sitting here for 2 weeks, desperate to talk about the business of comics retail on a podcast. No, nothing. I basically forgot this podcast existed. It was great. I just lived my life and did my job.
Thanks to everybody that commented about how much they missed Dal last week. Do you want to talk about, and I'm just pulling topics out of the air.
That's cool.
DC Giant Editions?
Oh, gosh, I guess we can. For those who don't know, the DC Giants have been something that they've been doing with Walmart for a while. Specifically, they've been doing Batman, Superman, Teen Titans, Wonder Woman, and some occasional other ones like Swamp Thing. Those have featured...
There's a Flash one now. Did you say that?
I didn't say Flash.
There's a Flash one now.
They've been doing those directly for Walmart with largely reprints, but also some new material. For like Superman and Batman, it's been the serialized stories by Brian Michael Bendis, Tom King, Nick Darrington, Andy Kubert. And then the other stuff that's been republished as like the Wonder Woman and Titans miniseries. But I guess they're revamping how they're doing that, and they're planning on a whole batch, a raft, if you will, of 100-page giants. And DC is going to be offering those to comic shops as well. They'll have, I guess, different covers for what they're calling mass market versus comic shop editions. And I think they might be hitting mass market before they hit comic shops.
So 2 weeks, I want to say?
Sure. So this is something where back when DC was doing the giant editions for Walmart, there was a lot of retailer complaints about why isn't this being offered to us? And so this seems to be an answer to that, which, fine, you can have them too.
It was going to be, don't worry, the new material would be collected in trade paperbacks, and that changed to, they're collected in 6-issue miniseries.
Right.
And now.
Yeah, now with the new editions, they're being offered to stores in the same format, new lead stories, a bunch of reprint backups. But it seems like going forward, what DC's plan is with the Giant editions is to have more of a kind of anthology focus to it, where instead of a continuing chapter-to-chapter lead story in a given Giant, it'll just be, here's 2 new Swamp Thing stories, and then next month it'll be 2 other new Swamp Thing stories, and each of those issues will have 3 or 4 backups or whatever it takes to get to 100 pages of content. And DC's offering those to stores now, except when they offered them to stores for October shipping product, they basically said, here are the 8 titles we're doing. 10 titles we're doing. We're not telling you which of these are continuing. We're not telling you anything about the content. But now that final order cutoffs are happening for those, I think, first few titles this weekend, DC, by their terms of service, has to tell us what's actually going to be in the book.
You'll find this out, but I believe you're FOCing all 10 of them today.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Same weekend that we're FOCing every single acetate DC cover for the month of November.
Yeah, I got to tell you that.
Hilarious.
The retailers that have already started FOCs, it is the largest FOC in the history of the final order cutoff program.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah.
It's not like I did enough work today.
Right?
But anyway, the DC Giants, they finally announced what content is going to be in there. And again, that's where we found out that they're kind of changing the focus. We had thought maybe it was going to be something where some A-list creators are going to be doing it. No, it's mostly just a lot of decent creators, but no one that is going to, it's not Tom King, Scott Snyder, Brian Michael Bendis, Jim Lee, Nick Darrington, Francis Manapul. It's mostly people who are doing okay work or stuff that's good that you can slot in to any book. They can do a good job, but nothing that's going to set the world on fire. So our policy is basically going to be looking at some of these as what properties do not have a really healthy comic presence that we can maybe have something on the shelves long-term for these books.
Now, I have to tell you that I think the idea of these 100-page Giants, especially in this new conceived format, I think it's a great idea. I love the idea that somebody could pick up for $5 this 100-page book and get a ton of stories about the Batman, or 5 stories about Superman or whatever. And I like that. For October, there's going to be one called Ghosts, and it's all horror stories and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I like that there's going to be a war one, but there's so many that we don't have shelf space for 10 new titles.
Right.
And while the idea of having a book that anybody could pick up at any time, and if someone comes in and says, hey, my friend likes Batman, here you go. Here's an out-of-continuity book, a $5 book where you get 100 pages of Batman stories. You can read them however you want. It doesn't matter. We don't have room to keep that on the shelf all the time.
I'll be honest, counterpoint. Batman is the property we need the least help from DC creating material to get new readers enticed. There's practically a new Batman #1 every single month. And on top of that, we have multiple graphic novel shelves full of stuff where it's like, here, read this.
Maybe I shouldn't have used Batman as an example, but I think you know what I'm trying to say.
I do, but I think that's the problem I have with this, is that it's the stuff that we're likely to carry is going to be something like Teen Titans Go or Scooby-Doo, where it's like a thick wedge of that's going to last us forever. That's fine.
And those are the books that they're not doing a series of. They're just one-offs.
Something like Swamp Thing, again, is one where Swamp Thing doesn't have a comic book right now, so having a Swamp Thing book on the shelf, great. But a Justice League one, a Wonder Woman one, a Batman one, a Superman one, these are franchises and characters that have so many other options right now that, frankly, something that is out of continuity is almost the worst thing to hand them, because it's like, well, this is all just random stuff from the last God knows how many decades. I'd rather give them something where it's like, well, if you like this, there's a lot more that you can also pick up. Like, if someone's looking for a Justice League thing now, I'm probably going to want to steer them towards the Scott Snyder, Francis Manapul...
No Justice.
Or No Justice, or the Totality, whatever. Because that's something where if they like it, there's more stuff right now they can do, as opposed to, oh, here's a done-in-one thing. I don't have to read any more comics because I got my whole experience. Like, I don't want you to have a finite superhero comic experience. That's not the point of superhero comics. The point of them is to read more of them. That's the whole business model.
But like Dale said, the ones we're going to get the most of are the Teen Titans Go, the DC Superhero Girls, the Scooby-Doo, because Scooby-Doo books can sell forever.
But again, also, like, just for the non-kids-oriented stuff, I do want to get a Swamp Thing one and the Ghost one and the War one, because there's going to be people who there's no other alternative for that. Like, if you want a Ghost book for DC, Gotham City Monsters hasn't shipped yet. Otherwise, you don't really have anything. Again, there is no current Swamp Thing comic book on the rack that you can actually buy.
Right.
There is no War comic that DC publishes right now, unless you count half of a Superman comic that came out this week. So these are things where it does fill a void in DC's publishing. But yeah, a Justice League one? They publish 3 monthly Justice League comics, one of which comes out twice monthly.
Yes, but Dal, one of those also has Swamp Thing in it.
That's true. So there you go. Why am I not selling them Justice League Dark? He's one of the 7 characters in the book. Enjoy! It's exactly what you're looking for when you say you want Swamp Thing stories.
So I feel that the way that these are being presented to us, the fact that they waited till the last minute to give us the creators, and that we're having to EPO-see all 10 of them at once, they're not going to get the numbers they were looking for, and I think they're going to be able to turn to retailers and say, hey, I thought you said you wanted these.
Honestly, I always thought retailers saying they wanted them was totally overblown, because we talked about it way back when there was first this controversy about new content and about it being offered just to Walmart.
And we did not care.
No, mostly because I remember when Marvel was doing the Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate Marvel magazines, and those were produced, I want to say, for bookstores. I don't think they were exclusive to any one bookstore chain, but you could find them at like Walden Books and Borders and Barnes & Noble, and retailers, when they heard about it, flipped out. How is there a Spider-Man comic that I can't stock for my store? And Marvel's point was, it's reprint material, it doesn't matter. And even with this, with DC's thing, like, this was content where, even the new content, you'll get it at some point. And we did. And when we finally got it, most people didn't care.
Yeah.
Superman Up in the Sky barely sells. Batman Universe does okay, but it's definitely not selling like Tom King's Batman numbers. And those are 2 projects where it's like the pedigree should be everything people want.
Yeah.
But people just don't care.
If this Batman story was the follow-up to Tom King's Batman, we'd be selling Batman numbers on it.
Yeah, it would probably be selling at least double, maybe triple. But it's not. Selling like a third of what Tom King's Batman sells for us.
You know, it's funny you mentioned this whole other market type of thing. I was in a Meijer, and I came across a Spider-Man magazine, which I thought was great. It's basically like highlights, but for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So it had activities and very, very short articles and fun comic strips and things like that. And I thought, this is great. I would love to have this in Sidekicks. This is an all-ages, fun Spider-Man property that comes out every month. So I took down all the company information, and I emailed them, and I never heard back.
I imagine.
I went to their website. They don't have a wholesale section. There's not anything about how to get their property in. And they do a ton. They do like Barbie magazine and nothing else that we would carry, but definitely the Spider-Man one. The Spider-Man one was, I'm like, oh my God, I love this book. I would love this as a kid. Like, if you're not quite old enough for a comic yet, but you want to engage in it, definitely after the Spider-Verse movie came out, and haven't heard back.
Yeah, getting back to the giant stuff, I definitely think it's something where stores' reaction to it was largely the, why didn't you even ask us? When, now that they ask us, it's like, oh, we don't want that. That's why we didn't ask you. But it's like the principle of the thing, I think, to a lot of stores. Like, how dare DC make comic book content and not offer it to comic book stores? Like, you can go into a lot of the business details about why not, but it doesn't matter. To most stores, the idea is, you should have at least asked us. We need to be part of the process. It's like indicative of publishers like DC looking at comic shops as less than their primary partnership. When the unfortunate thing that a lot of stores are going to have to learn in the next 10 years is you will probably not be their primary partnership.
Yeah, the better
Sorry.
Zoom and Inc., or I guess DC Kids do, the less they're going to need us.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can circumvent that is by doing well with those books.
Yeah, here is the sad truth, and I don't like it any more than you do, other retailers, but Marvel and DC would be grateful if they could abandon the comic market entirely and not lose any business. Like, I want to say executives' dreams are to just do high-volume sales to major accounts and not have to worry about dealing with Diamond Comic distributors and all that stuff. That's the sad truth.
Sorry, writing that to quote down. That's the title quote.
That's how this episode started, the thing I just said.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'm sure made steam shoot out of the ears of every retailer listening to this. You know, like, I'm part of the problem. I'm the one letting them off the hook. I'm the one that's not taking this seriously. And it's
no, you're not.
No,
condoning it. You're just saying you're speaking your truth.
I guess. I mean, I'm trying to have some perspective on this, and I think there's a tendency, I think, to look at the industry, and I think one of the things that frustrates me with a lot of retailers, especially those who've been doing it for decades, is a tendency to look at their business as something that they are owed by the publishers. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Like, it is... I've been doing this for decades, and I've been doing this since before the people at that company were doing it, and, you know, I'm part of the reason that that company is still around, and how dare they think of a future that doesn't include me in it. And it's like, markets change all the time, man. Like, I don't want my business to go away. I don't want my part of the market to disappear or be considered irrelevant by a publisher. But I also would not be shocked if it did. Look around at the media landscape. Look at how companies like AT&T and Disney are looking at these long-term, almost century-old publishers. Like, they're not looking at them as, oh, we definitely bought them because they publish comic books. That is not their value at all.
I talk about retailer groups a lot, about ones that I'm in on Facebook and the few more that I've joined recently, and I am not getting a lot of value out of them. But when publishers are talking openly and honestly with retailers, like Boom did this week, which we're not going to go into, but I want to thank them for a well thought out and reasoned explanation of some policies they're doing.
That tried to touch on a lot of retailer criticisms, or at least questions. And honestly, it's stuff that you and I, when we talked about it on the podcast, pretty much figured out our way through and exactly why it was happening.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything in there where I'm like, I would not have considered that. It was mostly a thing of like, well, if I don't assume that they're trying to kill me personally, why would they be doing it? And then once you kind of eliminate they're doing it because they're jerks, like, well, then there's maybe another reason, a better reason, an actual reason.
But there's a difference between, hey, please do this because our cover is wrong, okay, thanks, then, hey, here's why and how this is happening.
Yeah.
And I greatly appreciate that, but when you take into account the discussions that publishers are having with retailers, at best, they're talking to 30% of active retailers.
Sure.
And how do you get the other 70% on board or given this information? I mean, there are stores that still use cash registers.
Sure. There's a thing that a blog I follow called Ask a Game Dev, and it's pretty interesting. And I find video games and kind of the making behind them sort of interesting. But it's an anonymous game developer who uses his blog on Tumblr to answer questions and is able to be honest in a way that company PR would normally not let you do. And one of the questions that came up, and frequently comes up, is people saying, well, why don't game companies acknowledge what people are saying on forums, and why don't they take into account what their fans are saying to them on social media and make changes to the game to reflect that? And the game dev pointed out, like, we have statistics on how many people are using our games versus how many people are on the forums versus people talking to us on social media. And they have an internal rule called the 80-25 rule. And what that means is, for video games, and this works for a lot of different medias, and you can extrapolate it out to however that makes sense to you, 80% of the people who play video games will never do anything more than play the video game. They will never go to a website. They will never look at reviews. They will never do anything other than play the game. That's their entire engagement with the product.
Oh, man, that's me.
20% of them, of the people who buy a game, will go to a website or a forum, but they'll never post anything. They'll just read some things on it. 5% people who buy a video game will actively go to a website or a message board or a forum and post at least once a week. So that 5% thinks of themselves as incredibly relevant to what's going on, when a publisher from a high-level view is like, 5% is nothing. We cannot base our business decisions around what 5% of people say. And that's kind of how you can extrapolate that out for comics retailers on stuff like, Facebook groups. Like, there's people who are railing against publishers and do this, and why don't you see it this way? And it's like, the larger percentage of you is completely silent and totally invisible. And all you can base it on is how people are ordering. And it's the classic, well, we wouldn't do this if you weren't buying it. People say they don't want variant covers, but then they get mad when they can't get all the reprint variant covers for a book that had no variant covers.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I thought it was 80/25, and I thought that it was going to be a fun joke or a trick about how that adds up to over more than 100%, and there's that extra 5% that isn't counted. But
I mean, you could
80, 20.
Yeah, 80/20/5. And I think about that a lot when I think about how online people can have a very specific view of something, and everyone in their echo chamber is telling them the same thing, and it's like, so many people will engage with this art form or this product and never even think to see what people are doing online. And that's why frequently we can feel sort of weirdly frustrated by a lot of like the Comicsgate sort of people, where they're up in arms about something where no one who comes into our store is complaining about that, you know? Because the people who come into our store are just consumers. They're not extremely online people who need to be venting about what they think about the comics industry online. They just buy the comics and read them. That's it.
Yeah.
They don't read online reviews. They don't, follow publishers on social media. They just buy comic books and read them. That's it. That's the whole process for them. Front to back, stem to stern. That's it.
I feel like this is almost a good segue, but I want to start talking about Dawn of X.
Okay, let's.
Specifically, do you think...
The Dawn from Buffy's going to be in it? Yeah, maybe. I mean, that'd be a huge twist for the end of House of X.
At what age? Like,
that's the thing.
Michelle Trachtenberg now, or
no? Powers of 10. She'll be all ages. That's the next life for Moira, is as Dawn Summers.
Will she sing?
I don't want to give it away. Anyway, Dawn of X.
Do you think that we need to consider the way the demand for House and Powers escalated from nothing will be the same happening for most of these books? Like, we have pre-orders, but nowhere near House and Powers pre-orders.
No. I mean, they're higher than you would think for some of these titles.
Right.
A year ago, we would have ordered like next to nothing for some of these books.
Absolutely agreed. With the same creative teams, agreed.
Sure.
But do you think we should anticipate, like, I put in numbers for 3 of the titles so far, that's all.
Yeah.
Should we overkill?
We're going to go higher on the first issues than you might think based on the pre-order numbers, because I think we have to. We found a level, I think, finally, with House and Powers, halfway through the storyline.
Yeah, where it's too late to actively change anything.
Right. Where we're not selling out, not even first week, which is great. I mean, that's where we want to be, is to have copies for subsequent weeks.
But only if we can have the first 3 issues as well.
Through September we'll be getting those back in, and hopefully it won't be too late. But the good news is with like 3s and 4s of these books, we are actually keeping them in stock. So that's great. We just need to get those 1s and 2s back in. But yeah, as a result, we're definitely going to be ordering the non-X-Men Dawn of X books, because that's a completely separate kind of thing.
Right.
At percentages of X-Men rather than multiples of the pre-order numbers, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. What is that percentage?
I don't have one in mind. We're gonna have to. I'll take a closer look at it once we hit FO season.
Because I mean, I'm not about to start, but it's close enough to where I'm thinking about these new titles, and as we get some club subscriptions coming in, and some people are saying, "Give me all of them," and some people are picking and choosing.
Definitely for the first month, like Excalibur and Marauders, I think you're going to have a lot of people sampling because it's very fresh for them. But the success of those 2 titles is going to determine how many people keep sampling in month 2 with New Mutants and X-Force and Fallen Angels. Because if more than on X-Men, the weight is on Excalibur and Marauders. If people pick those up and it's not working for them, they will just get X-Men going forward. They will not hesitate to give no slack to any upcoming books. Like, they won't just keep buying the first 5 or 6 first issues that come out. They'll just say, "Oh, I did not like those. We're done here. I'll read the Hickman one. That's it." So it's really tough to say where we're going to be at on that. But yeah, I'm okay having a lot of extra copies of first issues of those books, just because I don't want to get caught out again.
I mean, we do have that nifty first issue shelf.
We do.
Right. That more often than not causes problems.
How's that?
Because someone will pick up a book, and, for example, Reaver, and I'll say, "Oh, if you like that, number 2 is out," and they go, "Oh, really?" And they go right back to that shelf with the number 2. and I say, that's just where the first issues are. We tried to differentiate that with a different color shelf.
Yeah, we have
But
that happen.
let me go get you Reaver number 2 off the shelf.
Sometimes with the first volumes that we have on the tables by the
Yes,
windows.
yeah, same thing.
Or people will pick up Saga Volume 1, like, do you not have the other ones? Like, well, we can't have all 9 of them out on one shelf, but no, here's where they all are. In the sci-fi fantasy section on the bookshelf.
Yep.
We were not going to do a face-out display of 9 volumes of Saga. Of that kind of room. Yeah, no, Dawn of X, I mean, it's a gamble. I kind of have a number in mind.
Is it 4?
No.
Is it 4.5?
No.
Okay, I'll stop guessing.
Okay, good. Across multiple covers, my number for the non-X-Men Dawn of X books was probably going to be around 100.
Okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's not huge.
No. I mean, I'm thinking about it in terms of what are we selling right now for House of X and Powers of 10. Assume that not everybody's going to want every number 1 that comes out. But assume that a lot will.
Usual suspects asked for different variant covers yet?
One guy did.
Okay.
Very early in the process. Like, basically when the first catalog dropped, he's like, I want the Bagley variants for these. And I think that was it. I think that was the only thing, was he wanted to make sure he got the Bagley variants. Because they're honestly not doing a ton of variants for the non-X-Men Dawn of X books.
I think there'll be a lot more before they come out.
I hope you're wrong. Cause
I do too.
Man, didn't you hated this last week with all of the variants?
Oh, for sure. This was this week, this Tuesday, with as large as the shipment was, and even with me making record time getting back, it was one of the largest shipments. Actually, it tied the number of boxes the previous week. Mm-hmm. It took me forever. And because so many of the books were big and bulky, and that Spawn 300 was so thick, you couldn't make piles because they wouldn't stay. Separating PQR number of covers.
Nothing's labeled.
Well, yeah, and nothing is labeled.
They didn't put in the barcode like cover R or Campbell cover or Campbell Virgin.
They list them on the invoice as cover A, McFarlane, cover B, McFarlane Virgin, cover C, McFarlane Black and White. Like that all the way through, because each cover had 3 different iterations of full trade dress, no trade dress, black and white.
Yeah.
So there could be also like the black and white Virgin as well. Virgin meaning no trade dress. So that's how they're listed, but they're not called that anywhere. And sometimes you look at it and say, is that Jerome Peña's art? I'm not sure. And then having to put them in order when they're not labeled and they're lettered.
Yeah. And
not even lettered, like, wait, which is this, what number is this? And that slows me down.
Sure.
And then having to have, a massive stack, 2 different stacks of spawns where we have the club numbers separate because we had like a handful of people that wanted all or some of the covers, so I have to keep those separate. So, and label them with Post-it notes so you know which ones they are to pull them. And then, obviously, we want to keep them in order on the shelf. I mean, we'd be doing a disservice if we just put them out randomly.
Yeah.
So I have to keep those 2 piles in order, and they're getting taller and taller. And if you split them in half, you still have to keep them in order from the front half to the back half. On top of, this week's House of X variant covers. Fine. I'll be honest, I don't necessarily put those in the box in invoice order.
Which is fine.
Who cares?
Because you can tell which one's the action figure cover and which one's the connecting cover and which one's the flower cover.
Do you put those on the shelf alphabetical by that iteration? No. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But on top of an already massive week.
Yeah, this was the second week in a row where the amount of shelf space that we had for our New This Week section was kind of insufficient. And that almost never happens. Like, usually we have like 6 shelves in 3 different sections of 6 shelves that collectively is like 24 feet across? 12 feet across.
No, it's 3 sections. 12 feet across.
12 feet across. And that's flexible, and that's just space. So if it's a big week for graphic novels, we can give the comics a little bit less space. If the comics have a big week, we can give the graphic novels a little less space. But the last 2 weeks have been giant, both for graphic novels and for comics. Just tons of manga, kids' books, Image and Marvel and DC, and then comics are just insane. Where even if you take away the variant covers, it's still just a ton of books. Really, really daunting weeks as far as like processing product and getting it ready for customers. It was not fun.
We've had to put the manga spine out for the last couple weeks just because
there's just no space. And then when we get like, oh, here's a Southern Hobby order with a bunch of pops, like, okay, well, everything has to get condensed down now. Thankfully, we got the pops on Thursday, so we had a day to sell out of some variant covers and some other stuff to create space for it.
But you who had already arranged the new comics on Tuesday for Wednesday, had to redo all the new comic section to fit the stuff we got from Southern Hobby.
Yep.
As a really fun counterpoint, John Dudas from Carol and John's Comic Shop in Cleveland, Ohio, had posted the September 89 order sheet from Advance Comics, which was the previews magazine for Capital City Comics distribution. And it's 30 years ago this month, and it was one page, and it was on page 74 of the catalog, meaning it was probably toward the back.
Yep.
And you could easily see, that everything fit into 3 columns. There was, it went DC, then Marvel, then everybody else, and that included single issues and trades mixed in.
Yeah, and the trades were just, probably not even new trades so much as just, Arkham
Days of Future
Asylum,
Past is available
Days
again,
of Future Past, Death in the Family, just basic stock stuff that was kept in print by the publishers. It was nice to be reminded of some of the cheaper newsprint reprints that they would do of things like Death in the Family, where they were like $4 or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it was just printed on like the crummiest paper, because it was just to keep it in print. Who cares?
And you're about to do the final order cutoff, and I bet you there are more items on it than was on that monthly catalog.
I'm sure of
Now, I'm not saying I long for those days because there was so much less thing. It was easier. Obviously, we would not be making as much money as we make now, if that's all we had to go on.
I mean, it's tricky, because one of the big changes in the industry is that not only cover prices, which is the huge thing that would make a difference between making money then versus making money now. If everything cost what it cost 20 years ago, then we could make 20 years ago money and it's fine. People made a living back then too.
Sure.
But they could do it off of less comics because basically everyone was buying the same books. There was more of a monoculture, everyone was buying the same 15 Marvel comics and 20 DC comics and whatever. I mean, not counting your black and white explosion and implosions. You could just order 300 copies of X-Men and you would just sell that instead of having to order 10 different Marvel comics that each sold 30 copies,
Yeah.
Or more likely nowadays, 30 different Marvel comics that each sold 10 copies. You could just order one that sold 300, and if it didn't sell out, they just go in the back issue for twice the cover price.
Yeah.
And they'd eventually sell, because you didn't worry about having to sell out in a month or 2 months or 3 months, because if someone's going to want to read this story someday, it's an X-Men comic. There's always new X-Men fans being developed. Someone's going to find a copy on a newsstand and then want to fill in a collection. But now with the way people experience culture and the availability of graphic novels and digital comics and torrents and whatever else, and the amount of comic books, so that even if you wanted to follow X-Men, well, Jesus, which X-Men? They restarted every 2 years. So there's no sense of I have to get all these. You could get 36 issues of X-Men Blue and you're done. Or you could skip X-Men Blue entirely and just collect something else. So yeah, I mean, I don't want it to go back to the way it used to be, because a lot of the things I like are more of the edge case sort of stuff. Some of my favorite Marvel comics are things like The Vision and Gwenpool, and those wouldn't exist if Marvel was publishing 20 comics a month.
Yeah, there'd be no room for the experimentation.
Right.
You wouldn't get your Silver Surfer Black.
You'd have one book a month that they could maybe be like, well, we'll try this out. But you wouldn't get this sort of swing for the fences weirdness of, well, we have to have this to support a movie. It doesn't matter what's in it. Just do what you want. We have to have a Vision comic. And same thing for DC. I wouldn't miss having 80% less Batman comics, even though they all sell great. But I would miss, some of the weirder concepts that I've enjoyed at DC over the years. Nothing right now. But in general, their history of publication, there's definitely things in there that are not huge commercial successes, but they are fun comics that meant a lot to me. Aztec, Jesus Christ.
Tell me more about this Aztec.
He's the ultimate man, Patrick.
Oh, I've heard. So, yeah, it was fun to see what was on there, like Gamma Marauders,
Yeah.
E-Man #1.
Sure.
Things that I remember fondly. I remember that time period well. I was starting my senior year of college, buying books at Northern Lights Bookstore.
Avengers West Coast, when it was still, I think Byrne was still doing it. It was like 52 or something.
Yeah, I was really into the early Hellblazers back then.
Sure.
You know, he was in his second year of his solo book.
Was it Delano still, or was it somebody else?
It was Delano.
Okay.
And Will Simpson? No, Will Simpson didn't come on until it was Garth Ennis. I don't even remember.
John Ridgway, probably.
Maybe, yeah. Good times. But, I mean, comics have to grow. Everything has to grow and evolve.
Comics are great now, man. I love comic books.
Yeah, say it. Preach, brother.
I love them, dude. I love them a lot.
And we love you. Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.
You know what else is weird? This notebook that I'm taking notes in for this week's episode. First page I turned to was the DVR schedule for when we got a DVR. I wanted to make sure I got the channels.
Sure.
Of the right channels for the shows I wanted to record.
Sure.
Here they are. You ready?
Oh, man.
I won't list the channel numbers, but they were all HD channels, so they were starting in the 180s. Parks and Recreation, Modern Family, Castle, New Girl, Walking Dead, Franklin and Bash, The Mindy Project, Venture Brothers, and in Dal's handwriting, not listed. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, The Blacklist, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., About a Boy, Undateable, The Strain, You're the Worst, and Garfunkel and Oates.
Wow.
There's a nice little time capsule for you.
They are.
How many of those shows did I watch to the end? Parks and Rec, New Girl, Franklin and Bash, but only had 3 seasons. Venture Brothers, technically not over yet. It's Always Sunny, same answer. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, I quit everything else. There we go. So that's a real comic theme, right?
Yeah,
There you are.
Walking Dead. That was a comic book once.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find a page, because I just use the same noteworks over and over. Oh, man. I turned to this page, I'm like, what does this mean?
Oh, whoops.
That was what I was going to order.
Uh-huh.
And then I realized, oh, wait, no, FOCs.
Yeah.
Don't need to worry about that.
Nope.
I'll just use that page. Why not?